thanks for joining us for another video blog. What I want to talk to you about today is how we can use storytelling to embed our culture. All of us as kids growing up used to love stories. When we hear people speak, we love listening to their stories, and that's because it gets our imagination going, fires up the right side of our brain, and really ignites our hearts. But one of the things I want to start off with is just about kind of demystifying and simplifying what we mean by stories, because a lot of leaders that we work with will sort of say, oh, how do I tell a story? I don't really know any stories. So let's just cover off the myths are. It's not about anything that has to be too big or too complex. It's just about retelling stories about the things that are already happening. It's looking at the little things that are going on in your organisation and just retelling that in a different way. That's what we mean by a story. The key though is when you're doing it and retelling it, you're creating a link to the culture that we're trying to create in the organisation. So what I want to do now is just expand on that a little bit more by talking to you about how stories and how storytelling relates to embedding cultures and how inspirational leaders use stories to embed a culture. And one of the first things that stories do is it helps create a connection. And what I mean by that is stories are a really good way of connecting the dots for people. About creating that link between things that a person does in their day-to-day and the bigger picture. And it also helps people see how a whole lot of different parts of an organisation fit together and how they all work in terms of our overall business model or our overall strategy and how culture is at the centre of that. The second part is it makes the culture real. And by making it real, stories are a really great way for people to see and imagine what it means when we're bringing our values to life, the sort of behaviours that we're looking for. When we tell stories, we hear about those examples and we imagine somebody else doing it and we can see ourselves in that moment and all of a sudden it has been brought to life. And the final piece is stories instill a real sense of pride with people in the organisation that they work for. When we tell great stories, it sort of takes us back to our past, to our heritage, to our DNA. And no matter how long we've worked for a business or how long a business has been around, all of a sudden through those stories, we feel a much greater sense of pride and connection to the company we work with and the culture that's making us famous. But then I guess when it comes to doing it, knowing how important it is and sort of getting the priority of telling stories and how it helps support our culture, what sort of stories should we tell? Okay, where do we start? What I want to do is give you just some really simple stories that all leaders should focus on to kind of, help that journey of getting people connected to the culture you're looking to build. And what I've done is I've just sort of given us kind of 5 types or 5 key stories that we should be telling regularly. One of those is tell the journey of the founders. So go back to when the business started, no matter how long ago that was, even if it's only a couple of years older. The story of the people that first started the business. What was their personal story? What was their personal journey? What was the context behind it? Go back and tell that so we know that real history. The next is tell stories about the milestones of the company's journey. So key moments in time where there were breakthroughs or key moments where the company was really challenged and tested but it came out the other side. Key innovations that really allowed the company to go to the next level and how the culture of the organisation was a big part in allowing that to happen. The next is tell stories about the impact that we have on our customers or our clients. So really talk about those small human moments and how we're making a difference, how our products and services are making a difference and how we can see that our culture has allowed that impact to happen. Team members rallying together. Okay, so given that culture is really the way we do it here and the reason why we do it that way, let's tell some stories about our culture in action where people have come together, cooperated, support each other and overcome big challenges. And the final thing is let's not forget to tell stories about failures or challenges we had that didn't quite go that well for us, but I use the word failures because a failure is a thing that leads to learning. So tell some stories about mistakes that the company's made, mistakes that you've made as a leader, but how that has enabled learning. And in that learning, the business has become stronger, but it was the culture that allowed that learning and that failure to be okay. So these are just some examples of the stories that you could start to tell. But I guess for the key takeaways for you as a leader is a couple of things. First of all, understand the importance of storytelling. It's one of the great crafts of inspirational leadership. Next is to just practice looking for stories. Okay, just sort of practice sort of keeping an eye out for stories because they're everywhere. It's just about looking for the small things that we're already doing well and retelling them, knowing that, but creating that link back to the culture that we're striving for. And then like anything when it comes to being a great leader, it's just practice, and eventually you're going to become great at it. Thanks for listening. We wish you every success.